I'm Billy, and I'm here with my buddy Don. Hi, Don.
Hello.
I'm changing my name.
What?
My name is now Dragon.
You a dragon?
Mm-hmm, I'm Dragon.
Why?
I don't know, because why
You
not?
don't know how to
That fucking
fuck
douchebag
shit
on
up?
Skinwalker Ranch
He
names
doesn't-
himself Dragon.
He's security, though.
Yeah, whatever.
You're not security.
He's security.
He's security.
Security alert.
Security alert! Security alert!
Today is episode 3. Hey, if you guys want to get a hold of us, you can talk to us on thedeadtimeradio@gmail.com. Send us an email. Or you can go to our website at thedeadtimeradioshow.com and send us a message there, or Patreon us. And Mara is actually mauling Dawn at this time, so that's beautiful.
You gotta introduce her. Hi. What do you have to say?
Mara wants to say hello.
What do you have to say?
So today's episode is all about paradoxes. I like paradoxes because they're paradoxical.
What is a paradox?
Well, we're going to find out on the first video that we have here. This is from The Pursuit of Wonder. And this one is paradoxes that no one can solve. Now, I like paradoxes because they're like mind benders.
What's a paradox?
Well, we're going to find out right now.
Why can't you tell me?
Because it's better to listen and learn
No.
than to just say
I'm
something.
listening to you, so I'm listening.
A paradox is something that you just can't, fucking listen.
Sponsored by the book summary service, Blinkist.
I know what it is.
The first 100 people to use the link in the description
You don't
will receive
know.
1 free
I
week
do,
of
I just
unlimited
don't know.
access
Define
and 25%
paradox.
off a
You
full
don't know
membership. Whether it's some sort of brain teaser, a personal observation, a visual or sound, or a seemingly unresolvable problem within math, science, and philosophy, every time we try to make sense of something through accurate, consistent premises and logic, but no matter how hard we try, fail to do so, we encounter what is known as a paradox.
And there's your answer. Have a good night. Thank you.
That did not make any sense at all.
It's stuff you can't explain it through any type of scientific. Well, you can explain it. Well, it's
So
hard.
that doesn't make
it's hard to
sense.
describe
I
it.
don't understand.
It's a
You-
paradox.
If I don't understand, no one's
Here's a
gonna
perfect
understand.
example of a paradox, and they'll probably talk about this. If you were to go back in time and kill your grandfather, would you still be alive when you came back to this timeline?
No, that's
the
proved
paradox. That's a
that
paradox.
on Back to the Future.
That's a paradox.
So Back to the Future, 1980s.
Kind of, maybe.
Went back to 85.
Maybe it is, and maybe it isn't.
So you don't even know. Why are we doing this show if you don't even know?
These strange intersections of knowledge and ignorance, absurdity and simplicity, intuitively true yet apparently false, can not only bend the mind in harmless brain teasers and puzzles, but can also reveal hugely significant insights into the nature of human thinking and
Hold
its
on.
limitations.
Intuitively true, but apparently false.
Right,
That's-
because
you are and
you
you
would
aren't.
think it's another paradox that they might even bring up on one of these that we show is if you were to go back in time and kill Hitler, would World War II have even started?
I don't know.
That's a paradox. You don't know.
It's a pair of dicks because it doesn't make any sense. Like you don't know.
Why is dicks always on your mind?
Because buttholes
Whatever.
are always on your mind.
Well, that's not true.
Yes, it is.
That's not always true.
Okay, play all the episodes. Y'all need to listen to all the back episodes.
No. That's a paradox, right
The word
there.
paradox originates from the Greek word paradoxon,
Paradox.
which translates into distinct from our opinion.
There you go. A
Nowadays,
paradox
the term is
That
often
doesn't
applied
make
to a
sense.
variety of things in a variety of
Doesn't make
contexts,
sense.
be it literature, math, science, philosophy, logic, economics, perception, as well as many other looser pseudo-applications.
Your opinion
In terms
is
of a
not
more
science.
complete contemporary philosophical definition, a paradox occurs when you start out with a set of premises that are understood to be true, or at least believed to be. You evaluate and follow the premises through accurate, consistent logic, and then determine their conclusion. However,
Now, I want to do something real quick.
It's science.
despite everything else being true and in the right order, the conclusion appears false, impossible, inconsistent, or absurd. However, despite all appearing under the same umbrella, not all paradoxes are equal, and not all paradoxes are actually paradoxical.
Okay, I think that we need to start a new protest that all paradoxes should be equal because all paradoxes matter.
We need to do... Okay, I'll need to write that down.
Just jot that down.
All paradoxes are
In his book, The Ways of Paradox and Other Essays, philosopher and logician Willard Van Orman Quine explores into the nature of paradoxes and standardizes 3 separate distinct categories, what he would classify as falsidical, veridical, and antinomy.
What?
To help illustrate the first category,
You didn't realize you were gonna go to school today.
No, my head hurts. I haven't had that much sleep. Do you know that I had to work last night?
You gonna learn.
No, I'm not. It's not gonna stick.
Consider one of the classic motion paradoxes from 400 BC Greek philosopher Zeno of Elea, known as the arrow paradox. The arrow paradox argues that an arrow flying through the air is at rest. Zeno argues for this by claiming that in each single isolated instant of time that the arrow is flying, it is in one specific isolated position in space, unmoving. In this moment, the arrow cannot be moving to where it is because it is already there, nor can it be moving to where it is not because no time has elapsed in this isolated moment.
Oh, my head hurts.
Wow!
My head
That
hurts.
blew my fucking mind.
What, like, this is like weed stuff. This is like what you talk about when you smoke weed.
See, I don't need weed to listen to this kind
I can't.
of stuff.
I've only had like 5 hours.
Thus,
Claim it
Zeno
like a
concludes,
sleep.
in every one of these individual moments, no motion is occurring. And since time is composed of a string of all these individual moments, then no motion is ever occurring at all. Thus,
So you're not moving.
So he's saying that
We're
the
not
arrow is
worthy.
not moving. It's time that is moving the arrow, is what I
Oh.
think he's saying. Fuck yeah.
the flying arrow is at rest. At first, and at the time of Zeno, this argument might somehow sound correct. But of course, in reality, we know that the arrow is in motion. This is what makes it
That's
initially
because
paradoxical.
He did that before the discovery of physics from Newton's laws of physics. So that's probably why he figured that the arrow was at rest, and the only reason why it went toward its target is because as time moved, like the arrow stayed here and time moved past it, and then I don't know, it's fucking weird, mind-blowing shit right there, boy.
However, this particular paradox is considered falsidical, which are, according to Quine, paradoxes that appear to be true based on a certain logical assessment within a certain state or condition of knowledge and understanding, but said state is fallacious in some sense, lacking the necessary insight to resolve the paradox. The paradox, however, is capable of being resolved and made non-paradoxical. In this particular case, Zeno's argument is fallacious because it assumes at least one or more false premises to be true. Firstly, it assumes that an instant of time can be divisible into a finitely small moment or chunk that can last 0 units of itself.
Which is false because time is constant. Time is constant. It never stops.
But time cannot be made into non-time.
See?
If time is made of units equal to 0, and you multiply or divide any measure of time by this, you would simply always have 0 time.
There you go.
This would essentially
We have
render
no
time
time.
inexistent, and if we are to agree that time, in at least some sense, does exist, then this premise would be false. Rather, time must be infinitely divisible into instants that still contain some vanishingly minute degree of elapsing duration. Secondly, motion is improperly defined by Zeno as well. Motion is not measured in abstract isolation in singular dimensionless moments. Rather, motion necessitates that an object is in different places at different times. Zeno's arrow perhaps brings up some metaphysical questions about time, but in terms of physics, with the right sufficient information considered from the correct angle, the paradox is understood to be
Physics.
false, or falsidical.
Falsidical.
Quine's next category,
Paradoxes are
veridical, are paradoxes that also appear false at first, but in this case, not because they are made by false premises or faulty logic, but rather, the premises are in fact true, the logic used is in fact correct, and the conclusion is in fact also true. It only appears false, however, because its truth runs counter to our initial intuitions. This can be exemplified most simply by one of Bertrand Russell's paradoxes, the Barber Paradox, in which imagine a small town with only one barber. This particular barber shaves all and only men who do not shave themselves. Initially, this seems fairly straightforward, but
But does he shave their balls? These are questions that the barber needs to answer.
paradox is, such a barber can never exist. This might sound like an extreme jump or false claim at first, but it's true, which is what makes it veridical. When considering the following question, it becomes clearer. Does the barber shave himself? If he does not, then he is part of the group which he does shave, since he
means he
shaves
shaves
those who
himself.
do not shave themselves. But if he is in this group, then he does shave himself. But if he does shave himself, then he cannot be the barber, since the barber only shaves those who do not shave themselves. Thus, we have an inescapable contradiction, and no barber can ever exist in such a condition.
So that's like Schrodinger's cat. You know that
Schrodinger's, yes.
that paradox. Like the cat is
It's
dead
alive
or the
and-
cat is alive.
It's both dead
you
and
won't
alive.
know until you open the box.
Right.
Right.
There-
So
important part of this paradox being veridical is not merely the inescapable contradiction, but that, taken from the position that no such barber can exist, the paradox simply demonstrates that an initially obvious or simple seeming statement can be logically impossible upon further consideration.
I didn't understand that.
what did you not understand?
That how could he... A barber's just going to shave everybody.
Right. He only shaves the people that don't
Shave themselves. Right.
So if the barber doesn't shave himself, he's in the group of people that don't shave themselves.
So he can't be the
So
barber.
he can't be the barber.
But he is the barber. He's the only one that does it.
But there's no barber that exists. That's what he was saying. That's what veridical means. That there's a contradiction. He can't be the barber if he's
That the
shaving himself.
definition of a barber is that you don't shave yourself.
Right.
So
The
he
definition
doesn't.
of the
Somebody
barber
else
is-
has to shave him. So
right.
his wife
So
is the
he's
barber.
not the barber. Maybe.
But he is the barber.
But he's not.
But he shaves others.
That's the paradox.
But he shaves others, so he's
That's
the
the
barber.
paradox.
So that means his wife is the barber because she shaves him.
Maybe. Maybe his wife's name is
As a
Barbara.
real estate investor, I look for sharp agents who really know
I
their
hate
market.
that.
Agents who do so much business that they can
Go
find
away. That's the paradox. That's what a paradox
The
is.
third and final category from Quine's analysis is what he classified as antinomies. This category is what we most likely think of when we think of a paradox, and arguably, this is by far the most interesting and relevant kind. According to Quine, antinomies are paradoxes that achieve a contradictory or absurd conclusion even by correctly applying true premises and consistent logic. They defy all accepted laws of logic and information, and for some, don't even appear to be resolvable by any conceivable information at all. They create, in Quine's words, a crisis in thought. And ironically, they can come in as little as a 3 to 4 word statement. Consider the following. This statement is false. This 4-word statement implodes all logic. If the statement is true, then the statement is false. But if the statement is false, then the statement is true. For the statement's claim that it is false to be true necessitates it being false, and vice versa, ad infinitum. There is no way out, no rope of logic to escape with. Another similar example includes the statement, there is no truth. Likewise, this statement is inescapably self-contradictory. If there is no truth, then this statement itself cannot be true, and therefore must be false. But if the statement is false, it must be true that there is no truth, and the statement is true. But if the statement is true, there must be no truth, and again, it must be false.
Is your brain
And then
digital now?
repeat, over and over. Other
I love
antinomy paradoxes that are a bit more involved and seem to imply different sorts of gaps between their conclusion and reality include problems like the Fermi Paradox, which reveals the contradiction between the strong logic that there are exceptionally high odds for there being other, advanced extraterrestrial life scattered throughout the galaxy, and there being no signs of any. Also, the faint young sun paradox, which reveals the contradiction between astrophysical understandings that the output of Earth's sun would have only been about 70% as intense during Earth's early history, while simultaneous evidence shows that Earth had the presence of liquid water and life during the same time with relatively consistent temperatures, which would be impossible if the sun's output was that low. One could also go so far to include problems like the entire origins of the cosmos, often summarized by the question, why is there something rather than nothing? As in, how did something apparently come from nothing? Or how has something always been? This appears absolutely inconceivable to answer in any way that makes any sense. Also, the very nature of our personal, subjective experience as self-conscious beings, at the very least, has strong traces of an antinomy paradox. Summarized by the hard problem of consciousness, how does physical activity in the brain equate to a subjective, felt state of being? Arguably, there appears to be no concept or evidence that could ever really answer how this is possible. Antinomies paradoxes of this broader form seem to exist at the very foundation of our being, from the origins of the cosmos all the way down into the very core of our consciousness. Existence as a whole is perhaps the greatest unresolvable paradox.
Isn't that fucking weird? There's like so many different fucking paradoxes. It's weird just even thinking about. It blows your mind. It blows your mind. I wanted to just play part of that so you could understand what a paradox is and the different types of paradoxes there were. Now, my question is, here's another paradox. Is the plural of paradoxes paradoxes, or is it paradoxi?
Singular.
I don't know either.
So paradoxes would mean it belongs to the paradox.
It's paradoxes. I'm sure
Paradoxes.
it's
A paradoxy.
Paradoxi.
Paradoxi.
Paradoxy.
Like octopus,
I don't know.
octopi.
I don't know.
Octopuses.
Octopi. It's octopi. It's not octopuses.
I think it's pusses.
No, it's not. It's
It's pussy.
octopi.
It's always pusses.
It-
Why do you have to laugh like that?
What? Well, you said pusses. Now here are top 10 paradoxes that will blow your
I'm
mind.
already blown, so I don't know. I think we've lost
That's what she-
Welcome to
everyone.
Top 10 Archive. A paradox is a question or statement that completely goes against logic. From time travel to the twin paradox, we're giving you our picks for the top 10 mind-blowing paradoxes. Oh no! Number 10, the liar's paradox. The liar's paradox is best illustrated with a piece of paper. Written upon it the line, "This sentence is false." Now, follow along. If the line, "This sentence is false," is true, then it is indeed false. However, if the sentence claims that it is false, then it must truly be false. Though if it's false, then it must be true. And there within lies the paradox.
It's weird. It's weird.
It's an ongoing contradiction of conclusions formed by illustrating the common belief about what true and false actually means. And even though the phrase is completely
Now there's a riddle that, like, when we're playing D&D, there's a riddle that you can do it's an older one that a lot of players did, where there's two guards at a door, and one guard says one of us is lying, but it doesn't tell you which one is lying. So when you ask a question, which guard do you ask the question? It's kind of a paradox, because it's like, well, fuck, which one is lying? So then you ask him, what's your name? And he says his name is Jason. Well, how do you know he's not telling the truth? And then you say, are you lying? And he says, no. How do you know?
You don't know.
You just fucking kill them both. That's what you do.
That's what I do.
Yeah,
I would have killed them before they opened
you
their
guys
mouth.
would have been like,
I'd be like, shoot him in the head.
oh, you're liars? Okay, then you die. You both die.
Now we don't have a
And
paradox.
then you'd have the whole village coming after you.
There's no
in
paradox.
accordance with grammatical rules, there is no value to determine absolute truth.
Oh, I get it. It's very clever.
Number 9, grandfather's axe paradox.
Very
Ship.
unique.
The grandfather's axe, paradoxically, is also known as the ship of Theseus paradox. Imagine you have an object, a ship, or in this example, your grandfather's wood axe. Now, throughout regular use, the axe becomes damaged. First, the handle splits, so you go out and buy a replacement. Later, the head of the axe chips, and grinding it down is no longer an option, so you set out to replace it with a new
No
axe
longer
head.
your grandfather's
It's at this point the ancient Greek historian Plutarch raised the question: if the entirety of an object is replaced piece by piece, does it truly remain the same
it's
object
not.
in question?
It's a totally different object.
Number
Not
8,
yeah.
the twin paradox. The twin paradox is a thought experiment dealing with the laws of physics in particular. The paradox involves identical twins, one who stays on Earth and the other who takes a high-speed rocket into space, only to return years later. When the space-traveling twin returns home, he finds that his twin on Earth has aged much more rapidly. The result is
that's
puzzling
true.
because
That happens.
each twin saw the other twin as moving. Number 7, grandfather
Okay, hold on.
paradox.
So the twin-
We gotta
Now
pause
this
that
one-
one. Do
Yeah.
you know why the other one got older? Because if
Because
he's
it-
going in a high-speed thing, time is different.
Yeah,
When you travel faster, your time is traveling slower.
slower, right.
And when you're traveling slower, time is traveling faster.
That actually happened with twins. That one went to space.
Right.
He was also shorter.
There and if you're going the speed of light, and you say you go 100 light years, when you come back, and you, like, say for instance, two baby twins. One twin goes 100 light years, and the other twin stays on Earth, the other twin will be 100 years old,
Right.
and the other one will still be a baby.
Right.
It's the same thing. That was on Interstellar. That was one of my favorite movies. I love that movie. Where he's on that other planet that actually revolves around its sun faster than ours. So everything on Earth has like 70 years have passed and only 7 days have passed for him. So when he goes back, he sees his daughter and she's an old lady, remember?
So all the story, I didn't see that movie, but
That's a
all
good
the
movie.
stories that they talk about where people are 900 years old, maybe they're from a planet that doesn't move as slow as ours. Maybe their planet
they
moves
would
faster.
move slower. If
Faster.
they're older, if they're 900
The
years old.
planet has to move faster, so they're younger.
If they're younger than us, but you said they were 900 years old.
Right, but
So if they're
because
older
like
than
in the
us-
Bible, there are people that are 900 years old,
Well, that's just
but we die at 100.
that's just silly talk, is what that is.
Well, you're talking about paradoxes. That's just fucking retarded. So we've already
Does
crossed
get a
the
little
line.
tricky as it's based
is
upon
not
the
logical.
hypothetical concept of time travel and
Time
creating
travel.
inconsistency by altering the past.
Even the tiniest change can alter the future in ways you can't imagine.
This paradox is also sometimes referred to as Hitler's murder paradox.
Yes,
A time
that's what
traveler
you're
goes
saying.
back in time to kill his grandfather before he would meet his grandmother. As a direct result, the time traveler would never have existed in the first place to make the trip. So, if he never existed, he could never go back in time and murder his grandparent, resulting in his undesired birth in the first place.
See? That's
Number
the
6,
paradox.
Zeno's arrow paradox.
So he could never do the time travel if he didn't exist in the first place. In other words, he could never kill his grandfather.
So there's a theory that the reason why we had the pandemic and all the shit that happened, like Hitler coming about, all the other options that were tried by time travelers were worse than Hitler. So it's the same way with the pandemic. Like, we have people that
Where
are
did you
time
hear that
travelers.
theory?
I
That's
don't
awful.
remember.
That's weird. I never
That
heard
everything,
that one. So
all
they
the
let
other
Hitler
options,
live?
all the other options are worse. So it's like the pandemic, all the other options that they tried to change were worse. Like, that's why JFK had to be murdered, because if he wasn't murdered, the option of him not being murdered was worse than him being murdered.
Well, I think
So they're
I
playing
think
with
there's
people's stuff. They're playing with.
new timelines get created, is what I think. So we were probably on a timeline, and then if there are actual time travelers that
We've
went
talked
back,
about
they
that.
fucked up the timeline.
That's what I'm telling you.
And thanks very much, you fucking fucks.
Like, where the hell are we now? I always say
Douchebags.
that. Like, what universe are we in right now?
Yeah, I don't like it.
This paradox was proposed by Greek philosopher Zeno of Elea. He did it to support Parmenides' doctrine, which claims that, contrary to the evidence garnered by one's senses, the belief that plurality as a concept is true, specifically that motion is nothing more than an illusion. Zeno states that for motion to occur, an object must change the position which it occupies. Using an arrow as an example, he states that at any one instant of time, an arrow is neither moving to where it is or where it is not. It cannot move to where it isn't because no time elapses for it to move. However, it can't move to where it is because it's already there. Simply put, if everything is truly motionless at every instant of time, and time is composed of instants, then motion is an impossibility.
So then why do we even do it? Why do we
Number
even
5.
Right.
move? Why do
I'm
if
not
it's our
moving
if it is an
anymore.
inevitability?
I'm gonna sit in this chair just like this the rest of my life.
Well, you probably will, and then you'll get hemorrhoids and all that good jazz. But if you made me lose my train of thought, hemorrhoid. God,
I heard what you were saying.
what's the point of moving? What's the point of moving forward if everything that's going to happen has already happened?
Well,
What's the point of you making decisions then?
We already learned
If
that
it's
that
already-
paradox was false.
But that means it's true.
Because it's saying that, no, because it's saying that time is what moves things, and that's not true. Physics is the answer to it. Thank you, Newton.
What's the point though?
Hempel's paradox, the Raven paradox. This paradox is brought into being by the questioning of what exactly evidence is. It was first proposed by Carl Gustav Hempel to show the contradiction between intuition and inductive logic. He starts the paradox with one simple statement: all ravens are black. Now this is where the logical train of thought arrives. Everything that is not black is certainly not a raven then. So, in any instance of the second statement being true, the first would have to be true as well. The reason that this conclusion is considered to be paradoxical? Because it implies that information is produced about the raven by looking at any object that isn't black.
But it's not really black. It's like
Number
a
4,
bluish,
called
silvery color.
I'm
Ravens are bluish.
gonna start calling anything that is the color of black a raven. Like my keyboard.
Like your shirt,
my
Raven.
My Raven. You like my new Raven?
Yep.
It's not new. I've had it for a while.
Your,
It's an old Raven.
Your dog Raven.
My dog Raven. She's black and white though.
Your hat. Your
My hat's blue.
Causal loop paradox. The causal loop paradox is another paradox having to do with time travel. This paradox happens when you use an event of the present, usually in the form of an object, action, or bit of passed along information, to make the initial event happen in the first place. This is also called the Bootstrap Paradox. Much like a bootstrap is used to pull yourself up, this paradox can be exemplified using George Lucas. Say for instance,
Okay, I have never used bootstraps to pull myself up. I've used bootstraps to tie my boots, but I've never.
I
used
never
them to pull
understood that
myself
saying.
up.
Like
pull yourself
up by your
bootstraps.
bootstraps.
Yeah.
Like what does that mean?
Apparently, it means you literally are pulling on your bootstraps to stand up.
But then you would fall.
Probably.
Why would you pull your bootstraps?
Well, if you're sitting down,
but then if
and
you're
then you pull your bootstraps up.
But then you've tightened your boots and now your feet hurt, so you
I
have to
don't know.
sit back down.
I want to hear
have
what
to
the
pull.
George Lucas paradox is.
I don't.
after the success of the original Star Wars films, George would use a time machine to go back in time and give his younger self the scripts that spiraled his success. Ultimately, the causal loop paradox forces an existence without a creation point. Number 3, Crocodile Paradox. Imagine, if you will, a young mother walking along a riverbank with her small child. Then suddenly the kid is snatched up by a crocodile.
What do you mean he's been abducted?
Yeah, by a crocodile or something.
Crocodile?
Or something.
The mother panics and pleads with the crocodile to relinquish her child. The crocodile replies that if the woman can guess whether or not he will release the child, then he will release it. Of course, if she guesses right, the crocodile will release the child. Then there is no paradox. However, if she replies saying the crocodile will not return the child, that's where we're left with a paradox. If she is correct in stating that he won't, then the crocodile never planned on letting the child go in the first place, breaking his word to release the child if she guessed right. If the mother was wrong and the crocodile did indeed plan on returning the child to her, the crocodile must now keep the child, though his intentions were not to do so, again making it break its word. Number 2, the Friendship Paradox. The Friendship Paradox was first observed by Scott L. Feld in 1991. He states that most people have fewer friends than that of the friends they have, on an average. Using a sampling bias as a base, Scott claims that people with a greater number of friends will face an increased chance of being observed with one's own friends.
I don't get it.
To really simplify it for you, he's pretty much saying that those with more friends are more likely to be your friend to begin with, because they have a higher inclination to actually go out and make friends.
Did we just become best friends? Yep!
Number 1, Paradox of Twin Earths. The Paradox of Twin Earths is a thought experiment, first presented by the philosopher Hilary Putnam in his papers Meaning and Reference and The Meaning of Meaning, used as an argument for what has now become known as semantic externalism. So we begin by supposing there's another universe with a planet just like our own, and we'll call this Earth 2. On Earth 2, there is a match for every person, animal, or thing on our Earth, except Earth 2 doesn't have what we call water. Instead of H2O, they have a different liquid that we call XYZ. Those from Earth 2 call...
Wouldn't it be HO2?
Or O2H.
Yeah.
Or 2HO.
Or HO42H?
You went off on the paradox train.
All their liquid, water, as well. Herein lies the paradox. If both Earthlings refer to water, are they referring to the same thing?
That's it, I'm getting out of here.
That is a paradox. I mean, but that doesn't make any sense. That's dumb. If it's Earth 2 and everything is exact, then that would mean that everything would be exact on the second Earth as well, so that water would be water. If it's a copy of it, right?
Yeah. If it's
there's not a
mirror.
guy on the second Earth named Ilib
It might be.
and
It's backwards
and
U.
Nwad.
Nwad, yep.
Nwad and Ilib. I don't know. That's a weird one, man. I don't know about that one. Oh, and then we've got Neil. We've got to play Neil
Because he explains things appropriately to where I can understand them.
well, it's more than that. You drool when you watch Neil.
He has a beautiful mind.
All right, you see that
I'm attracted to
sort of
minds.
large W-shaped constellation right there? That's Cassiopeia. And Cassiopeia A gives off a whole lot of radio signals. I actually listen to that a lot. It's a remnant of a supernova.
I didn't
Since the
realize you
birth
had
of philosophy,
instrument.
we've never stopped wondering about the answer to the question, are we alone? Ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus considered the universe to be the result of jolting of atoms and regarded it as highly likely that there were other worlds out there and that they were inhabited.
By the way, this is science time that's telling us all about this stuff. The Fermi Paradox is the one about alien races. Like there's a higher chance of intelligent alien life out there. And that was the paradox.
But since the time of ancients, did we make any progress in regards to answering this deep, cathartic question? As NASA has explored our solar system and beyond, it has developed increasingly sophisticated tools to address our endless curiosity for the possibility of life existing elsewhere in the cosmos. With our solar system, NASA's missions have searched for signs of both ancient and current life, especially on Mars and Jupiter's moon, Europa. Beyond our solar system, missions such as Kepler are revealing thousands of planets orbiting other stars, fueling our imaginations further with bewilderment, wondering if there are other civilizations out there, perhaps asking the same question, are we alone?
Now, I believe that there are other civilizations out there, and we are the dumbest of them.
I think they made us as like an ant farm. We're in a glass box, and they're just watching us fight and run around and
I concur.
steal food and
Be dumbasses.
work for
Explosion of knowledge in planets orbiting other stars called exoplanets, and the results of decades of
reasoning of why you're here.
I agree.
research on signatures of life, what scientists call biosignatures, have encouraged NASA to address in a scientifically rigorous way whether life on Earth is unique. Beyond searching for evidence of microbial life, NASA now is exploring ways to search for life advanced enough to create technology. Unfortunately, so far, we only have one data point in regards to the existence of life in the universe, here on Earth. But that shouldn't suggest that it can't tell us anything about the possibility of life existing elsewhere.
The prevalence of life in the galaxy, if you can quantify that somehow, I don't know how to quantify it just yet, but imagine that's a quantifiable entity. The prevalence of life that we presume to be out there, the stock in the prevalence of life has gone up. For me, the best argument for upping that stock value is the following. When you took biology class and you learned the age of the Earth 4.5 billion years ago, and then you look at the earliest evidence for life, fossil evidence of life on Earth, then you get about 3.5 billion years. Subtract those two numbers, get the difference between those two numbers, and that's the time clock from beginning to the first evidence for life. So that was about 1 billion years out of the 4.5 billion years that Earth has been here. So that's pretty quick. It happened in like the first 20% of the life of the planet. Now, we have found fossil evidence of life farther back in time than 3.5 billion years. It now goes back to 3.8. There's some evidence it might even reach 3.9.
That's crazy.
So we have shrunken the time available for life to have formed on this Earth. That makes it more likely. If the faster life kicks in from a pool of just random chemicals, not random, they're the chemicals of the universe, the faster that happens, the more confidence I have that life is something that would happen just given the right soup and soup starter. Now, we then learned, when computers got good, better than they once were, that the early solar system didn't just simply make the sun and the planets. There was debris all scattered in interplanetary space. And that debris slowly got vacuumed up by the gravity of the respective planets. That would not have been a pleasant occasion on the surface of those planets. Because to vacuum it up simply means you're getting slammed by the kind of asteroid that took out the dinosaurs, except you're getting that monthly. And you can calculate what the temperature of Earth's surface would have been. And it would have been higher than what would allow complex molecules to form. Because at high temperatures, you break apart molecules. What our computer models show is that this period of bombardment, period of heavy bombardment is the official phrasing, lasted 600 million years. So it's not fair to start the life clock at 4.5 billion years ago, because life had no chance of forming when the surface of the Earth is molten.
But
does that mean that the sun is going to be like an Earth
no.
when it starts to cool?
No, because that's a star. That's totally different.
So how do you know that you can't have life on a star?
You can't, because it's too hot. It's way too hot. But here's the thing. They're finding microbes and shit like that in lava pools and shit.
Yeah, that can live in that molten.
That live in like super extreme. They're rare, but like they live in the super extreme environments.
Right.
Is that a paradox right there? I would think so.
That means there's life back then.
Right.
Just something that we don't have the capability
Wait for things to
finding.
Right.
Cool down. When there's a chance that carbon can run its magic, then you start the clock. Now you're going from 4 billion years ago into 3.8 billion years. And you have pinched down to 200 million years. Down from a billion years that was imagined just a generation ago. And that is further evidence that practically the earliest life could have formed, it did. So just because we find it hard to do in the laboratory doesn't mean nature found it hard to do as well. And the idea that it's hard for nature to do because we can't figure out how to do it yet, that itself is an inexcusable expression of human ego.
I agree.
You agree with Tyson?
While evidence for the existence of alien life would be undoubtedly amongst the biggest scientific discoveries of all time, there is one discovery that would top that. Evidence for intelligent alien life.
See, now that's the difference right there. I think there is lots of life in the galaxy, and in the universe. I think there's all different forms of life, but how much intelligent life is out there? And I kind of think that we're the experiment from some intelligent life, because how many times have we done shows about talking about like ancient civilizations and the Anunnaki and all that stuff? I love bringing that shit up, but it's the same thing. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I have a feeling that we're hybrids, that we were created in a lab.
In 1961, American astronomer and astrophysicist Frank Drake proposed a probabilistic argument used to estimate the number of active, communicative extraterrestrial civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy. More than half a century has passed since Drake stimulated scientific dialogue on the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. But now, we have more insights to some of the factors of the Drake equation. In a paper published in Astrobiology, Adam Frank, professor of physics and astronomy at the University of Rochester and co-author of the paper, said, "The question of whether advanced civilizations exist elsewhere in the universe has always been vexed with three large uncertainties in the Drake equation. We've known for a long time approximately how many stars exist. We didn't know how many of those stars had planets that could potentially harbor life, how often life might evolve and lead to intelligent beings, and how long any civilizations might last before becoming extinct." By applying the new exoplanet data to the universe's 2 × 10 to the 22nd power stars, human civilization is likely to be unique in the cosmos only if the odds of a civilization developing on a habitable planet are less than about 1 in 10 billion trillion. 1 in 10 billion trillion is incredibly small, says Frank. To me, this implies that other intelligent, technology-producing species very likely have evolved before us.
Okay, pause.
It may be.
I have a theory. So, every time you see... so, the theory, as Neil deGrasse Tyson was saying, that there's no life that can exist with everything being lava. because you cannot, it's too hot for anything to be
Right.
formed or multiplied any molecules or whatever. So every time we see volcanoes on our planet, there's always an alien. Do you think that the aliens that supposedly visited us stopped all of the volcanoes so that we could form and produce? And it's like we're a
No,
petri dish.
I think that the
because they are
asteroids that
stopping.
hit-
They're stopping the volcanoes from
No.
destroying everything.
I think the asteroids that hit the planet in the first place were the seeds.
that they were shooting from their
Yes.
semen cannon.
That it was a big giant alien just whacking off
It was
in the universe.
all different ones just standing around like a
Whacking
circle
off
jerk.
in the back of
There
my
were
tool shed.
20 different alien things, and they were all shooting off at the Earth, and it was like a circle jerk, and it's like, hey, see who's gonna
Well, that's what I
last.
think, that the asteroids were the seeds, and I think that the volcanoes, it's like when you brew beer, you're getting out all the bad shit, so that you have, like, you're pasteurizing your beer, so that when it ferments, it's all clean and all the good
So
stuff is in there. So it
we're
creates-
pasteurized.
We're pasteurized. That's what the lava is.
The lava is cleansing.
Yep.
The other floor is lava.
That intelligence is rare in the cosmos. Intelligence as we have defined it. Because if you look at the fossil record, you look at the portfolio of life that has lived and thrived on Earth, there are a lot of features of life that many different species have in common. For example, locomotion is a pretty common talent. In fact, we have creatures on Earth with no arms and no legs, and they still manage to move. We call them snakes. So locomotion, they figured out how to move even though they don't have arms and legs. But what we have is evidence of features in life that apparently are really good for survival. The capacity to receive information at a distance. Smell, hearing, sight. Sight is a very common feature in animals. In fact, there are certain expressions of sight that happen independently of each other. That's how valuable this was as a tool for survival.
maggot on
The
a fly.
fly eye has nothing whatever in common with the vertebrate eye. Itself having nothing whatever in common with the octopus eye. Yet they are all eyes and they all see. Let's look at intelligence. Intelligence as we have defined it has shown up nowhere in the fossil record. Which tells me that intelligence can't be all that important for survival. Otherwise, it would have been there in the fossil records.
That's true, though, because you always talk about people's lizard brains. The lizard part of their brain is the survival part.
It's fight or flight. Yep.
So that's like, that's what kicks in when you're in a situation where you go primal.
You
know,
can't think.
And you learn how to build shelter, and you learn how to hunt, and you learn how to do all that stuff. So I don't think you really need intelligence to live.
Right.
That's obvious because none of us are fucking intelligent.
Some of the people that we've come in contact with
Oh.
are vertebrates.
Every goddamn night.
Yep.
Multiple times throughout life, but it's not. In fact, you can continue this to its extreme and say it may be that intelligence is just the right thing to have to render yourself extinct.
Yep.
True. That's what we're doing with the CERN collider.
In the summer of 1950, Italian-American physicist Enrico Fermi, while walking to his lunch with fellow physicists, was having a casual conversation about recent UFO reports and the possibility of faster-than-light travel. Allegedly, Fermi suddenly during lunch said, "But where is everybody?" This later became known as the Fermi Problem or Paradox, which is the apparent contradiction between the lack of evidence for extraterrestrial life and the high estimate probability for their existence. So, what could possibly explain this semblant paradox? Whatever is preventing non-living matter from undergoing abiogenesis in time to expanding lasting life as measured by the Kardashev scale in the context of the Fermi Paradox is known as the Great Filter. The failure to find any extraterrestrial civilizations in the observable universe implies the possibility something is wrong with one or more of the arguments from various scientific disciplines that the appearance of advanced intelligent life is probable. This observation is conceptualized in terms of a great filter, which acts to reduce the great number of sites where intelligent life may arise to the tiny number of intelligent species with advanced civilizations actually observed.
Here's the thing about this, though. Okay, I mean, I get it all. I'm understanding what they're saying. But we try to categorize intelligent life as certain things that are needed on this planet,
Right.
like water and oxygen and things like that. But that doesn't mean there's other places, other planets where intelligent life don't need those things, that they live maybe off of nitrogen gas or methane gas,
Right.
or they don't need water, they don't need air.
So look in the bottom of the ocean, the very bottom of the ocean.
Right. There's life
no
down there.
nothing.
But
There's
how
no
do we
light.
know?
There's no air.
Right.
All they have is water, and then they have the gases that the Earth gives off that we wouldn't be able to live with.
But that's not intelligent life.
How do we know that?
That's what they're talking
By
about.
our definition of intelligent life.
Right, but I'm
How do we
talking
know
about-
they're not talking? They don't have a podcast down there.
They don't.
So how do we
I
say?
would listen to it
Why
if
do we
they
say
did.
that invertebrates were not? Didn't have the mental capacity. Why do we say that? Because our definition of what they are. So obviously they moved around. Like he's saying,
Yeah,
you
but
get
he's talking
food, you
about
have
the
air, you have
survival.
water.
That's what he was saying, is that you don't need intelligence to survive. That's what Neil was saying. That that's not a prerequisite for life. But now they're getting into the Fermi paradox, which is basically talking about intelligent life. Like, you could have life on every freaking planet, and, you know, whether it be microbial or full-on something that looks like a rhino, but is it intelligent? That's what this paradox is where are all the intelligent aliens at? And what constitutes an intelligent life form?
So the people that have come in contact with aliens have their mind wiped. So how do we know when we do come in contact with an alien that they have wiped us because we're not smart enough? So we're not intelligent life to the aliens' point of view.
The real question is, do
We're
the aliens
invertebrates.
not only wipe
So
their
they
mind,
think
but
that
wipe
we.
their butt?
Oh, fuck you! You do it every time.
Economist Robin Hanson described a list of 9 steps in an evolutionary path that results in the colonization of the observable universe. The right star system, reproductive molecules, simple single cell life, complex single cell life, sexual reproduction, multi-cell life, tool using animals with intelligence, a civilization advancing towards the potential for a colonization explosion, and a colonization explosion.
See, some of these I don't agree with, though. There are some things on there that don't require sexual reproduction. There are microbes and shit that asexually reproduce.
They have their own right. They can make their own. They
Worms.
can multiply themselves. Yeah.
Earthworms.
Frogs.
How do you know that there's not intelligent earthworms out there on a planet?
That's what I'm telling you. That was what I was saying. Is our definition. So the aliens are more highly intelligent than we are. They think we're invertebrates, and we think we're over intelligent to the invertebrates. So is it like all the way down to dirt?
Well, invertebrates
to where
has
there's
nothing
things,
to do with it.
It has everything to do with it.
No, it doesn't.
We're not giving them the credit that they're due, that they're probably smart. We just don't have the information that they are communicating and they are, forming a pod
Yeah, but
like
an octopus
like
is
an orca
invertebrate,
whale.
and it's fucking brilliant.
Right.
And there's
Only because we've studied it.
there's a theory that an octopus is actually an alien
Okay.
from a different planet.
I think we're all aliens. We're just trying to live together. We can't do it. We're not doing very well. But that's what I'm saying. We study it. We realize they're highly intelligent. We study dolphins. They're highly intelligent. We study octopi. They're highly intelligent, or pusses. We don't know from the information that we have right now. Like, Pluto's a planet.
Yes, we can agree with that.
So it is no longer a planet, dude.
Yes, it is.
According to the Great Filter Hypothesis, at least one of these steps must be improbable. If it is not an early step, then the implication
Because
is
we
that the
learned it.
improbable step lies in our future, and our prospects of reaching step 9 of interstellar colonization are still bleak. If the past steps are likely, then many civilizations would have developed to the current level of the human species. However, none appear to have made it to step 9, or the Milky Way would be full of colonies. So perhaps step 9 is the unlikely one.
Here's the thing I don't understand about this, though. How do we know it's not full of colonies? Just because they don't communicate with us
Right.
does not mean it does not exist.
That's what I'm saying. We think that we're the most intelligent being, and that's from our ego, like Neil said.
Right, and like,
how do we know we're not in someone's brain?
Right.
We're one person, and then the aurora borealis is the slit of an eye. We're one inside of somebody's brain.
So
all the
you're
shit going
saying
on.
that the aurora borealis is the
Is
eye
the eye.
of Sauron?
Yep.
Oh my goodness. You heard it here first, folks.
We
The Lord
figured
of
it
the
out.
Rings is real.
We're inside of a brain. We're trying to figure ourselves out.
I think that our brain is what constructed us. I think this is all a fucking imagination.
Yeah. It's a matrix.
But I don't agree with that there's no intelligent life in the Milky Way galaxy just because they haven't colonized out. We don't
Right.
know that.
Right.
We're just now getting fucking telescopes that can see far. That's
Right.
it.
Exactly.
And there are so many different, we've got, what's that, CD, the ones that send out messages, radio messages, and see if we get anything back, or they listen to radio messages. How do we know? We don't know if they're answering because we don't know what to really look for.
So what
We're
hear,
just looking for anomalies that we hear.
right? What we hear when we get an answer back is beeps and odd sounds.
Right.
So they are communicating. We just don't know how to receive the information.
That's what I think.
We don't know how to decode it. Is
agree
what I'm
with it.
saying. Like we had decoders. We had people during the war that decoded messages that other countries were sending back and forth. So we are getting messages. We just don't. We're not smart enough to know what they're saying.
Right,
to us.
because, aliens don't even know who the fuck Samuel Morse is. So they're not going to fucking sit there and communicate with Morse code.
No. Right. No.
It's probably some type of mathematical code
Yeah.
that, because I think math is the basic for everything.
That's the basis for nature. That's everything. You got the Fibonacci. Yes, agree. Math is in everything. Math is in nature. So why would they not communicate in a mathematical code?
Because it's the easiest code to learn.
The only things that appear to likely keep us from step 9 is some sort of catastrophe via self-annihilation. Hansen's list, although incomplete, provides solace to the seeming paradox of Fermi in an attempt to answer the question, are we alone in the universe?
There's the eye.
A growing number of people believe we've already answered this question due to the recent UFO reports over the last few years. However, eyewitness testimony and ambiguous video footage does not qualify as extraordinary evidence to definitively answer this age-old question. But to be respectful to the people who believe we've been visited by extraterrestrial crafts, we will dedicate a whole video to this topic.
Wait, so the fleas go in like supersonic speeds?
Yeah.
Look at that giant flea! It's gotta be an alien!
It's an alien. It's a flea.
Oh my goodness.
Some dog scratched it off on him and it flew flying real fast.
Thanks for
Slipped through
watching.
the eye hole.
Did you like this video?
That's fucking cool shit, man. I love paradoxes. Paradoxes are so cray-cray.
It hurts my brain.
It does hurt your brain, but you guys
my
learned
brain.
some stuff today. There's so many fucking weird shit out there. Like, I don't know. The alien life one, the Fermi Paradox, is interesting because he actually created a formula and everything.
Yeah, that's the one I think's the most interesting. Is where are they? They've wiped
like
our
the time
brains, so
travel
why would
ones.
they not?
I like the time
Yeah.
travel ones. Like, what would happen if you went back in time and killed Hitler?
But you wouldn't, because you wouldn't.
Well, if you killed Hitler, unless Hitler's
Right.
your grandparent. But if you killed Hitler, I still think that there would be a World War II.
There would be
because
something, right?
There were other factors other than him.
Right.
Because first of all, Mussolini is the one that brought the fascist movement to life in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And Italy was pretty aggressive anyway. When World War II started, well, when it all started around 1936 is when Italy invaded Ethiopia. And, I mean, I think there would have been somebody either far worse or just like Hitler that would have rose to power.
That's
in
what I'm
Germany.
saying. I think Hitler was the least of
The
all
lesser
the
of two
the
evils.
lesser of all the evils. Right.
Yeah.
So that's why, like JFK had to die, because if he didn't, then this
Well,
horrible
you also
thing
have
was
to
going to
take
happen.
into consideration Japan technically, I think, started World War II when they invaded China and Manchuria. Because that started in 1937.
Mm-hmm.
Hitler didn't do anything until 1939. But, Europe was such a concentrated area and you had most of the Allied forces right there in Europe, and he was.
So he just came. He was just a voice for what everyone was feeling.
Yeah, I think World War II was going to happen anyway.
Right.
No matter what, it was going to happen.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things. So if you killed him, I think it would have been a negligent thing. It just would have been like
somebody
else
worse would have
taken-
stepped up, right?
Yeah, somebody where it could have been Himmler, it could have been Goering.
Yep.
It could have
It
been
could have been-
anybody.
That would have killed everybody and have no like one group only
Right.
be gone.
Or
He
it could
would
have even been Stalin.
He would have annihilated the whole world. He would've-
Stalin could have started the war.
Right. So it would have happened.
Yes.
So the lesser of the two evils. That's why they had to allow him, like as a time traveler, if you're the puppet master
Right.
or whatever. Yeah.
Well, the other cool paradox they talked about too was the one where if you were to go back in time and get your grandfather's watch, or no, what was it? Oh, you have your grandfather's watch and you lose it. So you go back in time to get it again. Would you have it again when you came back? Or would you have still lost it? That's a weird one.
That's the Schrodinger's cat. Yeah.
So you don't know.
So you have the watch and you've lost the watch because you
Right.
have to lose the watch.
Kind of like the thing with Back to the Future when Biff gets the sports catalog.
Right.
And then he becomes rich and it
Right.
changes everything.
Yep.
That, to me, I think is an offshoot timeline.
Yeah.
That's not the same timeline. Once Biff found that magazine, then the timeline shifted.
So now we're going all the way back to episode 1 to our podcast.
Which is the Mandela.
The Mandela effect.
But no, because I think that's different. I
no,
don't think
it's
that's
the
a
different.
paradox.
No, it's the different universes that you just spoke about. The different universes that we slip into.
Yeah.
It's the offshoot universe that other people.
I think a lot of Mandela effect
Like the
is just
trains
people
going
just
over-
Don't fucking remember shit.
No.
I said that on the
No,
first
I hear
episode
you,
too.
but I don't believe that. You just said so. You're contradicting yourself by saying there's an offshoot universe, but you don't believe in the Mandela effect. You
No,
just believe
because
that
I think the
people are
Mandela effect
idiots.
is just people don't remember shit the way it really is. I
Yeah, but how do you remember differently
There's
with
a difference.
someone getting
There's a
run over
difference.
by a tank and someone else remembering
There's a
he
different.
did not get run over by a
He didn't get
tank?
run over by a tank.
People remember he get run over
I
by
know,
a tank. It
because
was on live
they
TV.
didn't- They didn't. It was but if
That
you
is
go
something
back
that
and
you
look at the
remember.
live TV, he never gets hit by a tank.
In our universe, other people believe that. So if it's a different universe and it's an offshoot universe, they've seen him get run
I think
over.
they're mutually
He died.
exclusive.
There was blood everywhere.
I think they were mutually exclusive.
ran over his brain.
Mandela and alternate
It-
timeline is mutually exclusive.
Arterial spray. You're going to remember that on live TV.
All right, that's the end of this show. We want to thank you guys for listening. Send us an email at thedeadtimeradio@gmail.com or give us a shout out